Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I'm really happy to present to you my son-in-law, Iqbal Naseem, who is a graduate of Cambridge. He's based in London and he's visiting Bangladesh now. And he has been leading the National Zakat Foundation UK. There is a great thing. Welcome to Bangladesh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like to talk to him about the Zakat Foundation and related things. This is very interesting that you have Zakat Foundation in the UK. Is it any indication that Islam is coming up there and Muslims are coming towards Islam? What do you think?
Yeah, so for many years actually, even from the sort of 70s and 80s, there were lots of charities established collecting zakat and other funds to send abroad, right? So a lot of international relief, responding to crises, or sending sort of back home to the countries of origin of Muslims in the UK. But more recently, so around 10, 12 years ago, there's been more of a domestic focus, a local focus. So the National Zakat Foundation, what's significant about it is not so much the giving of zakat, because the people have been giving zakat for some time there, but specifically the fact that people are now interested and willing to give for the local distribution. So their sense of community is more clearly, in the local community. So because obviously when you're coming from different countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh especially, but other countries, your concern still stays back home or it stays in the Muslim world or whatever. But as the generations pass and the community grows, then you start to look forward more than you are looking back, if you like. So I think what it represents is that the fact that people are interested in giving zakat, more awareness about giving zakat, yes, generally speaking, there's no doubt about that. But also the fact that they're interested in how zakat can play a role in the future of Islam and Muslims in the country in which they live.
Yeah, this is one thing. One thing is the economic condition of people helping the people, but I'm thinking about the connectivity of zakat and the Islam, the way of life. So how about that? Are they coming towards Islam a bit?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think generally speaking, people are much more conscientious or thinking about what is the right thing to do. I think people realize, especially, for example, people who might currently, like myself, be in the 30s, 40s, for example, they're starting to have children or young children of their own. They realize that a lot of their practices so far have been habitual, cultural, not necessarily with an understanding of the significance of why they are doing certain things. So just like with many other things, zakat is also one of those things. Well, what is it really for? Why am I even paying it in the first place? How should it be properly calculated? Where should it be distributed and given, etc.? So I think there is definitely as you said, a connectivity or a connection between like people's natural interest in understanding the right thing to do, why they're doing it, and then to do it in the best possible way. So I think certainly people are concerned about making sure they're doing things in a way that makes sense to them but is also correct and appropriate.
Oh, okay. Now about the National Zakat Foundation. So how does it work? There are people who pay zakat and there are people to receive zakat, and what is the management kind of thing?
Sure. So it was set up in 2011 in the UK, and since then it's been in 4 other countries now as well. So Australia, Canada, Holland and Switzerland.
They're separate.
They are all National Zakat Foundations. They're all same brands, everything. They're like sister organizations. There is an organization called National Zakat Foundation Worldwide, which hosts all of these local organizations. But the UK was the first one in 2011 set up. Then 2013 was Australia and Canada. And then I think 2019 or 2020 more recently was Holland and Switzerland. Yeah, but so they're all working like as sister organizations, if you like, but under one global sort of umbrella. And also we're members of the World Zakat Forum as well, which is a body which is mainly run by Indonesians and Malaysians also, but they also host a lot of conferences and discussions on the topic of zakat. And waqf as well, actually. Anyway, but in terms of the management, so how it works, so yes, we have zakat givers and we have zakat receivers, the normal sort of situation.
Yeah, they're Muslim, both Muslims.
Of course, yeah. So Muslims. So in the United Kingdom, there are, according to the most recent census results, there are approximately 4 million Muslims, which is about 6.5% of the national population. In fact, in London, Muslims are 15% of the population. So outside of the UK, people will be surprised by this fact. It's quite a high percentage of London. London, obviously, a very significant city. 8 million population, 1 million plus are Muslim in London. So there are many. So there are givers of zakat. They are the ones who are interested in giving for local distribution, because in the country, and especially nowadays, and in the years that National Zakat Foundation in the UK was emerging, it was what was known in the UK as the years of austerity. There was a lot of cuts of government spending, a lot of cuts of services. People were really struggling. There was a massive rise of food banks in the UK. So there were statistics saying that, food banks were serving 1 million plus meals a year in the UK. So you wouldn't, again, from the outside, you wouldn't think that, people in the United Kingdom. I mean, I remember when I was running the National Zakat Foundation, because I stopped running at the end of 2021. But at the time when food banks were on the rise, I was hearing stories and reading about stories, and even people who are applying for zakat. And I was hearing stories about people who are walking many miles, like 10, 15, 20 miles to get to the local food bank. Now, if someone is going to walk that far just to they only provide you 1 or 2 days worth of food, really, at a time, all that time. So you can see there was a certain level of desperation. And even now, because of the economic situation, again, now all the talk is about a cost of living crisis. Muslims are disproportionately the bottom end of the economic spectrum. So there are definitely examples and many success stories in terms of wealth in business. There's a growing middle class or professional class of Muslims, no doubt. But in a lot of what you might call the working class areas, which are former industrial areas, etc., there are heavy concentrations of Muslims in inner city areas as well, where there is a lot of poverty, there's a lot of struggle, a lot of difficulty. Because whilst overall conditions of living are better, but the costs of living are also high. So, the struggle, in relative terms, the struggle is very real. So we have the system back then, as well as now, the core mechanism by which someone could access support is to basically apply for support. They would have to apply or be referred, but basically, in order for us to be able to understand what to do with the situation, we need to receive the person's details, the information, verify who they are, because obviously fraud, you have to deal with the possibility of fraud as well, and all of these kinds of things. So we verify who they are, understand the situation, and then make an assessment, and then based on the policy, we'll provide a grant, typically, to a person. Now, there are different types of grants. So there's a hardship grant, which is like a one-off payment, depending on the family size, etc. Approximately would support a family for its basic needs for maybe a month or 6 weeks, for example. But that might account for, £1,000, £2,000, depending again on the family size. But there were other grants that we would provide for the purposes of housing specifically, or work, where we were trying to help them, train them so they could potentially gain their own employment, or sometimes with education as well.
Thank you very much. This is very interesting.
No worries. No, thank you.